The movie opens with the town of Arkham, which is so old that it's full of witch legends, and everyone considers the dark spooky forest on the west to be evil. Hydrologist Ward Phillips is surveying the area for a dam development and comes across Lavinia doing a pagan ritual to ask for her mother's cancer to never come back. Among the many items she uses, there's her grandfather's compass. The two of them chat for a while and Lavinia begins developing a crush on Ward. Afterward, Lavinia returns home on her horse Comet. She lives on an alpaca farm that the family moved to after her mother's mastectomy to start a new life. Her father Nathan scolds Lavinia for leaving without telling them, and her mother Teresa sends her to find Benny. As usual, her brother is in the barn, smoking in secret. When they go back to the house, they find their little brother Jack looking inside the well because Nathan told him it could show him the stars. Inside, Teresa is having another online meeting with her clients, but the internet connection is causing her trouble. She asks Nathan to fix it before she starts losing clients, and Nathan promises to look at the dish later. In the evening, Nathan convinces Teresa to get frisky again, which they haven't done since her surgery. Benny uses his computer to look at star maps in the company of his dog Sam, but suddenly, Sam starts whining and the computer screen begins failing. A bright circle of light appears in the sky, and Jack hears some weird noises. Scared, he calls for his parents, but since they can't hear him, Jack leaves his room. Sam's in the corridor as well, growling at the noises. At that moment, the bright colors in the sky take over the whole farm and there's an explosion of light that makes Jack scream. The light quickly disappears as the family leaves their rooms to check on Jack, who is now in an unresponsive state. Sam runs outside to whine at something, and when the family follows him, they discover a bright meteorite has fallen on the farm. Nathan thinks the meteorite smells horrible and asks the family to stay inside for now. Then they discuss if they should take Jack to the hospital, which is an hour away. Suddenly Jack snaps out of it on his own and says his head hurts. Teresa wants to take him to bed, but Jack is too scared to return to his room, so Teresa lets him sleep with her tonight. The next morning, the mayor and the sheriff come to see the meteorite, followed closely by Ward. Nathan tells them what happened last night and continues to complain about the stink, but nobody else can smell it. Ward confirms it's a meteorite and the mayor asks the sheriff to take some pictures, promising to send reporters later because this will be great for tourism. Ward stays for a closer inspection, so Nathan sends Lavinia inside because he doesn't like how she behaves around Ward. As soon as Lavinia enters the house, Teresa teases her for her crush on Ward, causing an embarrassed Lavinia to hide in her room. Teresa follows her and tries to apologize, but Lavinia can't hear her because of her headphones. Feeling humiliated, she cries and pinches her own hand to distract herself with pain. Outside, Nathan interrupts the inspection of the meteorite because it's time to milk the alpacas. Ward wonders if there's anyone else he can interview, so Nathan tells him about Ezra, a hippie squatter that never leaves his house. Benny takes Ward to Ezra's house, which is surrounded by cameras that are connected to solar batteries. Ezra hands Ward a glass of water that looks brown, and since Ward can't smell anything bad, he blames it on rust from the pipes. Benny points out they've had trouble with the well before, but Ward doesn't think it should be happening this time of the year, meaning he'll have to run some tests. At that moment, a thunderstorm starts, and when the lightning hits the meteor on the farm, it creates beautiful sparks full of colors. Later in the evening, Ward's in his tent running the tests when suddenly his radio stops working. He also gets a call on his phone, but he can only hear static and a weird screech. Then he hears some noises coming from the forest and turns to discover weird lights floating around. His investigation is interrupted when out of a sudden, his truck starts on its own and his radio begins playing music again without explanation. The next morning, Teresa and Nathan discover the meteorite has someone disappeared. There are also some new flowers next to the well that neither of them planted. At that moment, the press arrives, and Nathan offers a very awkward interview that the family watches later on TV. While everyone laughs at the newscast, Teresa prepares dinner and enters a weird trance state that makes her keep chopping even after she accidentally hurts her fingers. Jack notices this and calls Nathan, but Teresa doesn't snap out of it until Nathan drags her out of the house to take her to the hospital. In the morning, Benny wakes up at dawn to feed the alpacas. When Lavinia wakes up later, she finds the alpacas on the loose and munching in their garden. Lavinia calls Benny out for not feeding them before and doesn't believe him when he says he did feed them already. Now Benny has to take the alpacas into the barn again. Meanwhile, Jack keeps hearing a weird screech, prompting him to sit in the garden and whistle at the well, which has even more flowers around it now. When Lavinia asks what he's doing, Jack explains the man in the well is talking to him. Lavinia suddenly begins feeling sick and thinks she can hear whistling coming from the well, so she runs inside. At that moment, Nathan tries to call her, but Lavinia can only hear static. Meanwhile, Jack's drawing a weird creature in his notebook when he hears a noise from the well. He comes closer to take a look and discovers a weird glowing organism that opens up and releases a huge flash of colorful light, then a bright insect wearing those same colors flies out of the well. Electronics inside the house begin failing while Lavinia is doing the dishes, which includes the knife with her mother's blood. Suddenly the colorful light glows here for a second as well, and bloody water begins filling the sink. Lavinia gets another call from her dad, but this one is static as well, and the noise makes Lavinia run to the bathroom to throw up. At that moment, Ward comes to the house to talk about the contamination in the water, but Lavinia tells him to leave because she isn't feeling well. Ward notices Jack standing in the middle of the garden giggling, and the kid says he's playing with his friends. Afterward, Ward visits Ezra, who has lost his cat. He also swears there are aliens living under his floor, and he proves it by playing a recording of the static with the screech. Ward blames the noises on geothermal activity, but Ezra swears it's aliens that came in the meteorite, and now they're everywhere, like in the static and the moisture. In the evening, Teresa and Nathan are on the road making their way home when they suddenly come across a monstrous creature that suspiciously looks like a deformed version of Ezra's cat. Nathan stops the car just in time and the creature runs away. Teresa tries to call Lavinia to check everyone is okay, but she left her phone in the living room. Meanwhile, Jack and Sam are watching the well, which has started to glow and screech. Sam growls at it before attacking it, and Jack only watches as the family dog disappears. Lavinia's inside trying to ignore the annoying screech and leaves her room when she hears a weird noise coming from Benny's. She discovers her brother's computer showing strange images that make her feel sick. Just like that, the computer goes off, and Benny finally returns saying he somehow got lost in the forest and couldn't find the house, which never happens because he knows the area like the back of his hand. Lavinia's phone begins ringing, so she rushes to answer it, but it's only static again. Jack is outside standing like a doll when Teresa and Nathan finally arrive, and Nathan scolds Benny and Teresa with uncharacteristic rage. He can't believe they left Jack outside alone, and the alpacas are on the loose when they should be in the barn. Benny swears he sent them to the barn multiple times, but Nathan doesn't believe him and takes them himself while looking for Sam to help with herding. The dog doesn't show up, and when Nathan asks the kids about him, Lavinia says that whatever living being arrived in the meteorite took Sam. Nathan can't believe they're blaming imaginary aliens for this and freaks out again, talking in a very quirky way. Afterward, Lavinia tells Benny they need to get out of there. Jack's staying the night with Teresa again and keeps on drawing weird creatures in his notebook. Nathan tries to take a shower and notices a weird mark on his arm that makes him lose hair, and when he looks down, he finds a weird blob blocking the drain. When Nathan picks up the blob, the thing stings his hand and makes him drop it, giving it the chance to escape through the drain. Afterward, Nathan tells his wife that the weird smell is still around, although nobody else can smell it. He thinks it smells like a cancer ward, and since Sam is gone, he thinks the smell may come from the dog's body, but Jack interrupts him to say Sam is now with Grandpa, who actually died years ago. The next morning, Nathan is delighted to discover all his fruits and vegetables are ready to be reaped earlier than expected. Teresa's trying to work and has trouble with the internet again, but when she goes to ask Nathan to fix the dish, she finds him violently freaking out because his vegetables taste horrible. Weirded out by this reaction, Teresa decides to take a rest, and Nathan goes to the living room to start drinking while watching TV instead of fixing the dish. He checks his arm and notices he still has that weird crust forming on his skin, so he tries to rub some whiskey on it, but nothing happens. Suddenly the TV starts failing and showing those bright colors. In the evening, Lavinia begins packing her things to leave, but when she finds her copy of the Necronomicon, she decides to try a ritual to protect her family. This requires her to offer her blood, so she ends up with lots of wounds on her body. Meanwhile, Jack wakes up when he hears the screech and comes to the living room to find Nathan sleeping in front of the TV, which is showing strange glowing images. Then Jack joins Benny outside to watch the glowing light that has appeared above the farm again, and now the entire garden is filled with flowers. At that moment, the brothers hear a noise coming from the barn, and when they go to check, they're shocked to discover the color has fused all their alpacas into one giant terrifying monster. The boys run away as Teresa comes out of the house to see what's going on, rushing to pick up Jack. Benny manages to get away quickly, but the color hits Teresa and Jack, fusing them together into another creepy creature. Nathan comes out and in a weirdly calm manner asks Benny to help him drag the creature into the house. They try to call 911, but the phone isn't working, and when Lavinia finally joins them, she screams at the sight of what happened to her family. In the morning, the entire farm is surrounded by a purple fog. Nathan tries to use the car, but it isn't working either, and it makes him freak out again. Benny and Lavinia stay by their mother's side, but the creature keeps whining in pain, and they discover sunlight is burning its skin. When Nathan comes back, he helps the siblings take the creature to the attic, and suddenly they begin hearing the screech again. Benny can tell there are some noises coming from the barn, so Nathan grabs a shotgun and goes to check on the alpacas. All the farm animals have fused into a terrifying monster, and now Nathan has no choice but to shoot every alpaca head he can see to protect his family. Afterward, he has a complete breakdown because he realizes his wife and son will become a monster too. Minutes later, Nathan asks his children to leave the attic so he can euthanize the creature. However, Nathan can't bring himself to shoot something that still looks like his dear wife, and he kisses Teresa on the lips without caring about the nasty goo on them. Meanwhile, Ward is in the town hall trying to stop the dam project because of the contamination, but the mayor won't hear him out because she can't lose valuable contracts. On his way out, Ward is called by the sheriff, who shows him all the dead animals he's found by the road near Nathan's farm. There are birds, rabbits, and even a cat, and Ward thinks it looks like radiation burns. In the evening, Nathan returns to the living room to watch more glowing TV while Benny and Lavinia try to attack Comet to leave the house. However, the horse has purple eyes, and as soon as he sees what they want to do, Comet freaks out, pushing Lavinia off him in order to run away. Suddenly, Benny hears Sam's whining coming from the well and decides to go down there to rescue him, ignoring his sister's warnings. The awful smell hits Benny's senses and the color appears at the bottom of the well, grabbing the boy and assimilating him. Lavinia barely has time to grieve because Nathan shows up behaving crazily again. He violently grabs Lavinia and drags her into the house, scolding her for not behaving before locking her up in the attic. Then Nathan goes to the living room to watch the glowing TV while he hallucinates that his wife is there with him and the screen is showing their favorite movie. While Lavinia discovers Teresa and Jack have become a full violent monster, Ward and the sheriff arrive at the house. They see Nathan behaving weirdly while scratching his spreading rash, and at that moment, they hear Lavinia scream. They run upstairs and force the door open to find the monster about to eat Lavinia. The sheriff hesitates to shoot and Nathan ends up doing it first, pointing out this thing isn't his family as he shoots twice to get both Teresa's and Jack's heads. Ward picks up Lavinia, who is covered in pink blood, and tries to take her to his car, but the color is coming out of the well in huge rays that block the way. Nathan sees this and raises his shotgun to shoot at the light, but the sheriff thinks Nathan is aiming at Ward and shoots Nathan first, killing him. Lavinia rushes to her dad's side as the sheriff says they should evacuate the house, but Lavinia refuses to try, pointing out the color won't let them. At that moment, the screech can be heard coming from Ezra's house, so Ward and the sheriff go to check on him. They can hear a voice speaking, but it isn't actually Ezra, it's a recording he left behind. Ezra's body is desiccated, and the recording explains that the color is attempting to remake Earth into something similar to the world it came from. Ward sees something weird moving on the security cameras as they go off one by one, and the sheriff notices Ezra's forehead opening and glowing. It seems another explosion of color is about to happen, so the men leave the house, but on their way out, a mutated tree captures and kills the sheriff. Ward runs back to the farm, where he finds Lavinia standing in front of the wall and calling it all beautiful. When she opens her eyes, they're purple too, and her forehead starts glowing to show Ward a vision of the world the color comes from. It looks like a psychedelic exoplanet inhabited by tentacled alien entities. Terrified, Ward pushes Lavinia away to stop the vision and falls on the ground, where the grass is slowly becoming tentacles too. The color begins unraveling at the well and Lavinia disintegrates as she receives the light with open arms. Ward can feel his body being affected too and runs inside the house, where he finds a mutated Nathan talking with Lavinia's voice. With a flash of light, the rest of the family shows up as well. Nathan attacks Ward to protect them, prompting Ward to kick him off before running to hide in the wine cellar, locking the door behind him. Ward covers his ears as he feels the screech getting louder and more painful, and all the bodies upstairs disintegrate as the color explodes and destroys the building. Moments later, Ward comes out of the cellar and finds everything covered in gray ash. The well managed to stay in one piece, and on the ground, Lavinia's compass awaits to be rescued. Years later, Ward still comes to the area because he's part of the project behind the dam that now covers the former farm. He still has Lavinia's compass with him, but he refuses to ever drink this water.